Hey everyone, the mysterious producer here again, coming at you with another prediction of Deadliest Warrior. This time we're going to look at the matchup I've been waiting to see, the matchup between Joan of Arc and William the Conqueror. These are warriors with two different fighting styles, from two different eras, two different motivations, and of course, two different genders. With that being said, let's take a look at two of the greatest medieval generals ever. Well, let's take a look at the warriors themselves. Joan of Arc was 17, 5'4" and about 120 pounds. She was intellectual, strategic, inspiring, and determined as all hell. She was under the impression that God had sent her to lead France to victory. In many ways, she reminds me of William Wallace in her determination and leading from the front. However, she is not a noble knight. She was a peasant, a maid if you will. That meant she had no formal training and not a lot of nourishment growing up. However, with the amount of raids that happening where she lived, she probably saw war and probably trained herself to fight. William the Conqueror, however, was 38, 5'10", and about 250 pounds. He was charismatic, fierce, confident, strong, and also very determined. He vowed England was his birthright, and he vowed to take it, and no one was going to stop him. He was raised in Normandy and received formal training in the Tire. So on one hand, we have a very intellectual, almost frighteningly determined peasant general that made England retreat, and on the other hand, we have a fierce, confident general who brought England to its knees. If I had to decide, I really do have to go with William. No disrespect towards Joan, but he's much bigger and formally trained. He's been going to war since he was a teenager, so both training and experience is on his side. So, the greater X factor goes to William. But warriors don't mean crap unless you have the weapons to back it up. Let's segue right into close-range weapons. Well, one thing a lot of you would have noticed is that the weapons look very similar, with the exception of the Seige Weapons, but we'll get there. William has the longsword, the 3-foot stabbing and hacking weapon of Normandy, while Jonas has the arming sword, which is like a smaller, lighter version of the knight's longsword. Looking at both the swords, I only see one major difference, and that is the tip. It's a much finer tip, which makes it better for thrusting. But if you're looking at weapons, you also have to look at the armor that they are both have, and both of them have good armor in their own right. William wore full-butted chainmail, meaning that the links end touch. Although effective when she tries to hack at him, it's really not going to help when she stabs him. I mean, look at how this chainmail did against this stabbing weapon.
Give him the claw! I think that'll do.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good thing. On the other hand, Joan has plate and chainmail, which gives her the maximum amount of protection and mobility. Although not impenetrable, I don't really see any weapon, especially the longsword, breaking through the plate. So, because of the armor, Jonas wins this one. Her armor and weaponry is just made to a higher standard, and it really does show. And now we move from close range to long range. Which one has a better killer from afar? Again, what we have here are two very similar crossbows, but I think anyone can agree they're two entirely different sizes. And ironically, it's William who has the smaller crossbow. William has an early crossbow made of wood and steel, hand-pulled, and probably lethal up to 100 feet. Joan comes into battle with an arquebus. This is a much larger crossbow with more draw weight. However, depending on the size they're planning on using, it would require some kind of assistance. A windlass, a pull lever, etc. It would give Joan a huge range advantage, but a serious disadvantage when it came to reload time. But the real question is, who is the better killer? Well, from my point of view, it's William. Having a crossbow you can only get 2 shots per minute is a serious handicap. It's a close call, but I would rather have a crossbow I can aim accurately and reload fast than a crossbow that takes way too long to reload. especially in a siege battle. And last, but certainly not least, the siege weapons. Which weapon will give you an advantage when seizing a castle? Now, with the siege weapons, we really see a difference in technology. Joan comes into battle with a siege cannon. Let's call it a bombard. While William comes into battle with his signature catapult. Now, these weapons are about as far away from each other as you can possibly get. The bombard can be used to take down a wall and rush in through the gap. The range was long, longer than any crossbow, and when the wall came down, so did everybody who was standing on the wall. William's catapult was made to kill people inside the castle. It would lob stones over the castle walls instead of through the wall, and it meant that when he captured a castle, he didn't have to repair it in order to defend it. But there is a lot of weight to having range and gunpowder on your side. Also, one thing that is different about this battle is that it's a siege battle. Since the catapult's range is so shallow, the enemy on the wall can easily shoot back, especially with the heavy crossbows. With the bombard, you can't help but get hit. So, because you can get the most amount of kills with the minimum amount of casualties, the bombard really does win. So, if you're keeping score, there's a tie. But I do have an idea who's going to win. Because this warrior has such determination and intellect, she really does have a close finish. Having range and technology advantage is really what's going to hammer this home. Being able to shoot your castle and not be close enough for your enemy to hit her army, especially for a siege battle, and being able to kill without being killed really widens the gap. So, it's quite obvious who I'm going for. And I do have to say, it was a close finish and a good matchup. But the first female and the deadliest warrior for this episode, Joan of Arc, knock 'em dead.